Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo, bolo. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कथमयं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं Sagrajatham Sahagana Raghunathan Bitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Hare Krishna. I am overwhelmed with gratitude to have this very special and rare fortune to be among devotees from all over India and all over the world on this virtual Vrindavan Yatra. It is a experience that we should always be deepening in our life as the days, the months, the years pass. How to learn to be grateful in whatever situation may come to us. Grateful not so much for the situation, but for the opportunity to connect with Krishna, the opportunity to express our sincere desire to connect with Krishna through our service. When Srila Prabhupada would tell us that there can be no material impediment to our own spiritual progress, this really is what he meant. That Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. Krishna is forever living within the heart of every living being. And the nature of Krishna's love is, even though he may be everywhere, still he's intimately, personally with each and every one of us. This is the nature of Krishna's all-pervading, perfect, ecstatic love for his devotees. The spirit soul that is giving life to everyone is Krishna's devotee. In the material realm, some such devotees forget, and due to ahankar, due to the false ego, separated from Krishna, thinking, I am this body, I am all those things in relationship to the body, whatever I have is mine. And in various levels, trying to be a controller, an enjoyer, a proprietor. Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhradam sarvabhutanam gyatva shantim richchati. But in order for there to be peace, Krishna has given this simple formula to understand that everything belongs to God. And ultimately, everything is meant to be understood and engaged in harmony with what pleases the Lord. And that the Lord is within everyone's heart as our supreme, ever well-wishing, loving friend. During the Ras Leela, when Krishna danced with gopis, each and every gopi was thinking, Krishna's only with me. And from Krishna's perspective, his love for each devotee is, I'm only with that devotee. Similarly, in all the palaces in Dwarka, each of Krishna's family was thinking, he's only in our home. He never goes anywhere else. And when that same Krishna came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he would perform kirtan, there were many different groups singing God's holy names, and each one thinking, Lord Chaitanya's only with us. He's only glancing at me. When Krishna was sitting on the bank of Yamuna with his little friends, having lunch, prasad, there were so many friends, countless. And each is thinking, Krishna's only looking at me. Each calf, each cow, when Krishna chants one name, each cow and each calf hears her own name. Krishna's calling only me. Krishna's a Rasa Bihari. He's the perfect lover, the perfect object of love. And it is his eternal, supreme pastime of power to be conquered by the sweetness of his devotees' love and to conquer all devotees with the sweetness of his love. With this understanding, we can understand, even in this world, Krishna is personally, individually in each and every one of our hearts. There is nothing, there is no one that can ever take that away from us. By hearing about Krishna's pastimes, by hearing Krishna's teachings, and by hearing, discussing, remembering the qualities of Krishna's devotees, we develop a faith that is more substantial than any of the illusory changing perceptions that we call reality in this world. The supreme reality is that sarva janmadhyasya yata, that the absolute truth, who's ultimately the most beautiful, lovable person, is the source of everything, the source of everyone, and is seated in everyone's heart. And the more we make spiritual progress, we feel Krishna individually, personally in our hearts. And we're very careful what we speak, what we do, as far as possible, even what we think will be pleasing to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the role of a devotee, he taught us how to prepare our hearts in such a way that that it is a pleasing place for Krishna to reside. He cleansed the Gundicha temple, which represents Vrindavan, and also represents the heart of a devotee, which means when our hearts truly become clean through following these regulative principles, through living a life of dedication and humility, high character, ethics, morality, in a spirit of service, we do not bring in any more of the pollutants that are separating us from Krishna. At the same time, we cleanse our hearts through hearing, through chanting, through remembering, through worshiping the Lord, and through rendering service to the Lord. And when the heart is clean, then Krishna reveals himself. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and his associates, the Paramatma in our hearts will be revealed as Krishna, Sri Vrindavan Bihari, the enjoyer of Sri Vrindavan. As was discussed yesterday, when we connect to that Vrindavan Bihari within our own hearts, then we see Vrindavan, not through our physical eyes, but through Krishna's grace, which reciprocates with the sincerity of our devotion. In this sense, Krishna is personally within our hearts. And although we know philosophically and we understand through realization as we make progress that Krishna is in the heart of every living being, Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmani Kavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. It is this vision, how Krishna is in the heart of every living being and how every soul is a dear child of God. With that understanding, real compassion can be understood. Compassion is not, from a spiritual perspective, a theoretical idea or a practice that we engage according to our convenience. Real compassion is not selective. It's a state of consciousness where we do understand that Krishna is in everyone's heart. Whether one is a Brahmin or whether one is living in the forest with nothing, without caste, whether one is literate or illiterate, black, white, red, yellow, brown, whatever one religion or irreligion, whatever one species, a dog, a cat, an elephant, a cow, wherever there's life is a spirit soul. And Krishna is with that spirit soul. Still, Krishna within our heart is our very personal, intimate friend and lover who's just seeing from the perspective of being our ever well-wisher. In this spirit, a devotee is grateful. Whatever situation comes, we know that Krishna is still with us to give us shelter. And Krishna tells in Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridishani vashtom atasmitir jnanam apohanam cha, that he's the source of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. With a sincere desire and a grateful heart, looking for the opportunity to serve, Krishna reveals how we can serve, how we can progress in every situation. If our sincerity in devotional service is dependent on external circumstances, then it is that misconception that is the real impediment to our spiritual progress. We read about so many great personalities, and even in our lives we have seen them. We saw how His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, in the last days of his life, he was so grateful. He was crying in joy because in that state, he could do something wonderful to uplift the consciousness of others. And when we take shelter of Krishna, we know that our future is in Krishna's hands. Bhajahure manasri nandana abhay charana ravindare. When we feel that our future, our present is in Krishna's hands, then really there is nothing to fear, because Krishna is our supreme, personal, ever well-wishing friend. When we place ourselves in Krishna's hands, yeyatamam prapadyante, Krishna reciprocates and accepts us in his hands. In that sense, death for one who is dying is not a sad thing. It's just another opportunity while passing through another situation. Of course, for those who are left behind, it is a very sad thing. It's sad in the sense that we no longer have the association of such a person. And through the body, there are so many ways to interact and have exchanges with the soul of that person. And that facility is gone. What to speak of all the goodness that that person, that great Vaishnav, is offering to the whole world. But still we celebrate, because we know for a devotee who has taken shelter of Krishna, for sure that devotee is in the loving company of Krishna. In this way, union and separation. We are united in remembering the wonderful activities and exchanges of the Lord's devotees, even when they depart from this world. And when we're about to depart from the world, we know that Krishna is opening a door for us. So there's nothing to fear. Considering, according to Padma Purana, that there are 8,400,000 species of life, and the spirit soul passes through so many of them, with mothers, with fathers, with friends, with lovers, with physical arrangements that we consider our homes. In every species of life, we enter into these situations, we pass through them, and then the soul departs from that body. Considering the eternal nature of time, this little human life that we have in this world is so tiny. But yet, the quality of the sincerity we cultivate, samsiddhir haritoshanam, to please Krishna, is neha vikramanasosthi. Every moment of our positive devotional service is something that is never lost. It's eternal benefit. So the great personalities taught us that a great life is not in the duration of years, but it's in the quality of how we utilize every moment. And difficult moments to recognize that Krishna is in my heart, that my beloved Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, his blessings are always with me, and has given us a purpose to live, to pursue, living according to that purpose. That is something that nobody can ever take away from us. Not even disease, not even earthquakes, not even death, not even which political party happens to be in power. Nothing can disturb the path to perfection. And nothing can disturb the opportunity to share the path of perfection with others. I'm just thinking about serving Vrindavan in separation. Because here we are having a Vrindavan Yatra, and perhaps only a few of you are actually physically in Vrindavan. Others are in Mumbai or Pune or Nasik or Nigri or Belgaum or Calcutta or Delhi. Some may be in Chennai. Some may be in China or Russia or Ukraine or Italy, England, Africa, Australia, America, South America, North America. And many of us had every plan to be in Mayapur this year, which is none different than Vrindavan. But due to circumstances that are beyond our control, we're all in so many various places. Some are alone, some are with families, some are locked down. But still, we have come to serve Vrindavan in separation. When our beloved founder Acharya, Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, was sailing on the Jaladuta, he wrote in his diary that I am feeling so far away from my home in Vrindavan. At that time, Srila Prabhupada had never left the country of India in his whole life. Now he was 69 years old. He was born in Calcutta. And he lived for many years preparing for his journey in Vrindavan, in the very heart of Vrindavan, Shri Radha Damodar Mandir. And now he's on this cargo ship in the middle of a sea. And it was a stormy sea. Srila Prabhupada spoke many years later that when that little cargo ship was in that stormy ocean, it seemed like it was just a little matchbox. Very tiny, very vulnerable. In that state, he wrote, I'm feeling so far from Vrindavan and my beloved lords, Shri Shri Radha Damodar, Shri Shri Radha Govinda, Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Raman, Radha Gopinath. But I am on this journey to fulfill the instruction of my spiritual master, whose instruction was to fulfill the will of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Godatveshe Namaha. Lord Chaitanya is so merciful. He appeared in this age of Kali, a time where there's so much quarrel, hypocrisy, immorality, so much arrogance and despair. But it was his will, without discriminating who was qualified or unqualified, which place was auspicious or which place was inauspicious, which time was auspicious or inauspicious. Without considering any of this, he wanted to give the treasure of prema, love of God, love for Krishna, in the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. The sweetest, most intimate, all-inclusive, rarest love for God to everyone. And what in Satya Yuga, to even approach such love for Krishna, one had to meditate for long durations of life, performing severe austerities. In Treta Yuga, by doing magnificent, which is today impossible, forms of yajnas or sacrifices. In Dwapara Yuga, by perfectly, meticulously worshiping the Lord. Lord Chaitanya, by his mercy, Kalera dosani de rajanasti heka mahanguna kirtana eva krishnasya mukta sangha parambrajet. In this age of Kali, which is an ocean of faults, he taught us that there's one benediction, the best of all benedictions, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. That simply chanting the name of Krishna with humility, with devotion, with sincerity and attention, one can achieve the ultimate perfection of liberation. Krishna Prema. Love of God is the ultimate perfection of life, but the ultimate perfection of that perfection is unmotivated, uninterrupted love, which is personally blessed and graced through the servants of Srimati Radharani. It was that instruction that Srila Prabhupada received. To spread the holy names of Krishna, the means by which one can achieve that love, and the path on how to chant perfectly. Srila Prabhupada, he expressed his happiness in his own humble way to endeavor to fulfill the instruction of Mahaprabhu and his Guru Maharaj. So far from Vrindavan. And one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples told us that when Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON in a successful way, where temples were growing and the community of devotees was developing worldwide, he went to his American headquarters, and the devotees lovingly arranged a very nice room for him to stay. Srila Prabhupada was sitting, and he told this person, "You have seen my rooms in Radha Damodar temple. Very simple, very small. In those days, nothing like even today, that it was so rustic. There was no attached bathroom or anything like that." Srila Prabhupada said, "I am simply longing to be back there, in the most simple, primitive setting to live in. But the supreme opulence is that it's in Vrindavan. I'm longing to be back there, my eternal home." But Srila Prabhupada said, but for me to go there would be sense gratification. Because what pleases my Guru and Krishna is to be here, and even to tolerate all these different circumstances, including such a beautiful room that I've been given, so that I can serve, so that I can give Krishna's love. Yes, in separation, Srila Prabhupada brought Krishna in his heart to share with devotees wherever he went. Vrindavan is a state of consciousness. And cultivating separation from Vrindavan, which includes separation from our gurus, from the Vaishnavas, from Sri Sri Radha Govinda in our hearts and in our temples. This is how we cultivate these love in separation. Our sadhana, our hearing, our chanting that is protected by avoiding offenses and living in a service mood of humility and dedication. That nourishes and cultivates the seed of love within our hearts. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he prayed that to actually enter into the real spirit of Vrindavan, we need to follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. In that sense, we are Rupanugas. We are meant to follow the path of Rupa Goswami. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entrusted the future of his movement in the example and the guidance that the 6 Goswamis had given us. I'd like to speak something about Rupa Goswami's guru, Srila Sanatana Goswami. How he approached Vrindavan and how he revealed Vrindavan to the world. When Srila Sanatana Goswami was quite young, he had a dream. In that dream, an effulgent Brahmin appeared to him. That Brahmin entrusted a gift, the most precious of all gifts, to Srila Sanatana Goswami, the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Sanatana Goswami woke up from that dream, he was so enlivened, feeling so blessed. And he looked everywhere for that Srimad Bhagavatam. But it was a dream. There was no Srimad Bhagavatam. Sanatana Goswami lamented. He cried tears of separation from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in those days, it's not that you could just order online or go to a bookstore or go to an airport to get a Srimad Bhagavatam. In those days, and this was in East Bengal, where he was living, very, very difficult, very rare. You had to travel long distances to find someone who would personally, with his own hand, etch into leaves each page of the Bhagavatam. Sometimes it would take years just to copy one such Srimad Bhagavatam and to find someone who could do it. But when we feel separation, Krishna does reciprocate in his own special way. Later on that morning, that same Brahmin that appeared in the dream came to the doorway of Sanatana Goswami and presented him the same Srimad Bhagavatam. How much we're grateful really determines the heartfelt value of something or someone. It's human nature. Sometimes we don't really appreciate how much someone means to me until they die. They leave their bodies, or they're imminently about to leave their bodies. Sometimes even things We may have so much, but we don't understand or recognize its value until it's lost. So this is natural psychology, that separation gives us a deeper experience of something's value or someone's. Every moment of life, Srila Prabhupada quotes, it's more precious than anything in this world. Because if you lose a moment, you cannot buy it back, even with crores of rupees or billions of dollars. Time is precious. To waste time is actually a great tragedy. Gratitude gives us the understanding of the value of each moment, gives us the understanding of the value of what we have and who we have. When we're grateful to the great souls, we express our gratitude through our selfless devotional service. Sanatana Goswami, in his lamentation of not having a Srimad Bhagavatam, there was nothing so valuable in all of creation than to have it. And then it was given to him. And that gratitude was nourished moment after moment. It was ever increasing. After he had the Srimad Bhagavatam, he was studying it. He was reading it. He was memorizing it. He was sharing it with others. He was totally absorbed. Krishna tells in Srimad Bhagavatam that he has personally descended, incarnated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punja Sravana Kirtana. And by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam attentively, sincerely, Krishna is so pleased within the heart that he gives us more and more of a taste for hearing. And he cleanses all the anarthas, everything unwanted in the heart, and reveals himself. Nasta prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya. To regularly read the Srimad Bhagavatam, to regularly not just read it, but with a hungry heart, to be nourished by it, to be transformed by it. Seek and ye shall find, the Bible says. If we're seeking Krishna, if we're seeking love for Krishna, and if we seek understanding that there is nothing more valuable than this, that's how we really develop a taste for Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and these other divine literatures. If we're seeking loving service to the Lord, grateful that it seems that I could chant Krishna's name anytime I want, but still there's nothing more precious, nothing more auspicious, nothing more sacred, no wealth greater than Krishna who has appeared in his name when we appreciate that and seek shelter, seek love for Krishna in that name, seek the opportunity to serve and please Krishna when we chant his names, accordingly, Krishna gives us this param dristva nivartate, this higher taste. Sanatana Goswami is our Sambandha Guru. He's the guru of our whole sampradaya who's teaching us how to connect in a loving relationship with Krishna. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu staged every aspect of his life as an instruction to us. We cannot imitate. It would be a state of arrogance to think we can imitate. Sanatana Goswami is so great. And the nature of a true devotee is we think we're very small. But we're feeling ourselves in that smallness so fortunate that we could serve the great. The experience of the joy and gratitude of serving the great is infinitely dearer to the heart than thinking ourselves to be great. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this principle as the thread in which all the pearls or flowers of everything we do in life, it's all strung on this thread. Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Das 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 Anudas. The aspiration to be servant of the servant of the servant. Anu, very small servant of all other servants, of the Lord of the Gopis. Srimad Bhagavatam became the life and soul of Sanatana Goswami. Every aspect of his life was oriented in harmony with the spirit and the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. After some time, the ruler of Bengal, the Nawab Hussain Shah, he saw that Sanatana Goswami and his younger brothers Rupa and Anupam were so loved by everyone, so talented in every way, so intelligent. He somehow or other manipulated the situation so that Sanatan and Rupa, who they were feeling that if they don't assist the Nawab Hussain Shah, then there will be great persecution and tragedies to so many innocent people. As a service to others, they accepted that role, and they did it so well. They never compromised in their compassion or their character, but still, they were serving a person who was cruel, violent, and extremely materially ambitious. He made Sanatana Goswami his prime minister. Rupa Goswami was home minister, treasurer. He treated them like his own brothers and divided his kingdom by giving them what is equivalent to what billions of dollars would be. He gave them great treasures, built beautiful palaces, estates. In this way they lived. But they were devotees of Krishna. together the three brothers would be absorbed in reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing the wonderful qualities of Prahlad and Ambarish, and experiencing the beauty, the sweetness, the love of Krishna as the Brijabasis did. That is how they were reading Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is the opportunity for all of us to enter into with our sincerity. Their father and mother, who were sincere devotees, who followed the path of Dharma, they were praying to Krishna, please rescue our children from this abominable materialistic situation. And Rupa and Sanatan, they did the same thing. They were praying for a way out, but they didn't know what to do. Then something happened. Well, let's go back a little. While they were living in this very high, powerful positions, Sanatan Goswami regularly invited his guru, Vidyavachaspati, to come to their kingdom of Ramakeli. Vidyavachaspati, we don't read about him so much, just in a few places. But throughout Sanatan Goswami's life, even when he was living in Vrindavan many years later, he always worshipped, honored, and felt surrendered to Vidyavachaspati. He prayed to Vidyavachaspati in the very introduction of his commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the nature of a Vaishnava. However advanced, however accomplished, however famous, however learned, and who could compare to Sanatan Goswami? Still, always feels oneself completely humble and grateful and surrendered to one's spiritual master, one's guru, and those who have helped one on the path of devotional service. This is so much a character of devotee. Later on, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was approached by Sanatan Goswami, who appealed to Lord Chaitanya with such humility, considering himself so fallen. And Lord Chaitanya said, Sanatan Goswami, you are fit to be my spiritual master. You are my guru. That is the Supreme Lord, the source of all knowledge. Vedaishcha sarvera hameva vedyo vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham. Krishna tells in Gita, I am the compiler of all the Vedas. I am the knower of all the Vedas. And by all the Vedas am I to be known. The source of everything and everyone. The Adi Guru, the original Guru of everyone forever is Krishna. And yet Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya is telling Sanatan, you are my spiritual master. And yet Sanatan Goswami, throughout his life, how he gave honor and gratitude and service to Vidyavachaspati. And he stayed with him in Ramakeli, sometimes for durations of time. With the wealth that Sanatan and Rupa Goswami had, they wanted to utilize it in such a way that two things: they could be absorbed in Krishna despite all the distractions all around them, and they can uplift other people. They built beautiful assembly house to invite scholars and pundits and yogis and sages to come to discuss the scriptures. And they built beautiful little homes for every guest. And it is described in Sri Bhakti Ratnakar that whoever would come to their conferences, sometimes so many people, so many exalted people, and yet Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, whose names at that time were Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik, titles given by the king. Their physical features were beautiful like Kamadev, Cupid. Their wealth was like Indra's. Their knowledge was like Brihaspati. And they'd be sitting on an elevated platform with other scholars. And any guest that would come, they would come down from that platform. And with the sincerest humility and respect, they would bow down to that person, welcome that person personally, arrange a house for that person to stay in and all accommodations along with that house, arrange prasad. Everyone who came felt so special, so important. Even if nobody ever heard of them or they didn't really have many qualifications at all. Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis made everyone feel so valued. And it wasn't a political stunt. It was from their hearts, because they really were embodiments of the spirit of Srimad Bhagavatam. They were very charitable to the Brahmins, to the Vaishnavas, to those who were diseased, to those who were poor. Abundant charity they were given. The joy of giving. When one loves Krishna, like watering the root of the tree, naturally our love extends to everyone in whatever possible way we can uplift. Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, in the estate that they were given, they built a Kadamba Kanana. It was a replica of Vrindavan. A place that at every moment when they weren't doing their government responsibilities, they would take shelter of. They grew the same trees that are in Vrindavan, tamal trees and kadamba trees. They excavated the places of Krishna's pastimes, like Sri Radha Kund and Sri Shama Kund, Govardhan, Leela stands, temples. In this way, they actually established Vrindavan in the mood of separation. When Srila Prabhupada wanted devotees to establish a new Vrindavan, when devotees were inspired by New Brajadham, Govardhan Eco Village, these places are, by Srila Prabhupada's grace, attempts to follow in the footsteps of the six Goswamis. Place to be absorbed in remembrance, in prayer, in hearing and chanting. Love and separation. In Ramakeli, the Kadamba Kanana was not different than Vrindavan. Then, at one time, Sanatana Goswami had a dream. A sannyasi who had an effulgent golden complexion, whose eyes were like lotus petals that were so large they seemed to be extending almost to his ears. His nose was like a sesame flower. He had long, beautiful, golden arms. Tears of ecstatic love and compassion flowed from his eyes. This was Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He revealed himself to Sanatana Goswami and told him, do not become attached to all these material facilities. In course of time, I wish for you to go to Vrindavan to fulfill my desires. This dream completely transformed the heart of Sanatana Goswami. He naturally went to his brother Rupa Goswami and explained. Sri Rupa Goswami, he exclaimed that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From within their hearts, they understood their eternal beloved Lord had appeared. And the three brothers, from that moment, surrendered their bodies, their minds, their words, their lives, their souls to the service of Lord Chaitanya. Their mother informed them, write a letter to the Lord. They wrote many letters, but they were never answered. The letters were appealing with such humility that we are trapped in this very worldly situation. How could we serve you? Not getting answers to the letter only increased their anticipation and their feelings of love and separation from the Lord, who they had never seen anywhere except in a dream. And finally, they got a message with just a couple lines telling them that they should serve in the situation that they're in without attachments, while completely absorbed in remembering Krishna. That was their life. They performed their service excellently, but always absorbed in remembering Krishna. Very difficult situation. Around them was so much violence, so much greed, so much arrogance. But like lotus flowers, they remained pure. In such a state, they were just waiting for the Lord's mercy. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his first attempted journey to go to Vrindavan, he very much bewildered people by taking such an indirect route where he went to Ramakeli, way out of the way from the direct path to Vrindavan. And by the time he reached there, with his merciful glance, he was awakening Krishna Prem in millions of people's hearts wherever he would see them, village after village, town after town. Hundreds and thousands of people were leaving their homes to join Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan procession to Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya longed to be in Vrindavan. From Puri, he attracted countless people to go to Vrindavan with him in kirtan. When they arrived in Ramakeli, such a kirtan no one had ever seen. And Nawab Hussain Shah happened to be there. He made a strict law years before that no Hindu could publicly express their faith. This was completely outlawed. He had massive armies. He was conquering all directions with them. They were all at his disposal. And here is Lord Chaitanya chanting and dancing with thousands of people, tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands, right there. The Nawab Hussain Shah heard this roaring of Sankirtan, of the Mahamantra. What is this? Just by hearing news of who Lord Chaitanya was, one of his associates said, I've never seen anyone like this. I've seen many, many swamis and yogis and gurus who have come to Ramakeli, but nobody like this. He's so beautiful. His every limb is so attractive. And yet from his beautiful eyes, there's rivers of tears of ecstatic love and compassion constantly flowing as he's dancing and singing. And and people by large numbers they're leaving everything behind in their life just to chant and dance and follow with him. The Nawab Hussain Shah, he understood. I have to pay people to do anything I want them to do. Or else I have to invoke fear in their hearts. But this person's not paying anybody anything. And yet everyone's surrendering their lives to him. He must be God. In this beautiful story, late at night after that kirtan, Rupan Sanatan Goswami, secretly along with Anupam, went to meet Lord Chaitanya. Today in Ramakeli, there's a kadamba tree and a tamal tree where Lord Chaitanya was sitting on the ground during this historical meeting. Actually, when they first arrived, Nityananda Prabhu and Thakur Haridas greeted them and brought them to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. And there they offered those historical prayers of such humility, taking shelter of the Lord's mercy. Lord Chaitanya, at one point, he said, please stop. Your humility is breaking my heart. He embraced them It was then that he gave them the names Rupa and Sanatan. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he left Ramakeli, Rupa Goswami, he decided that he was going to retire. And he put all of his massive wealth in boats to distribute. And he left some gold coins for Sanatan. Sanatan had to complete certain services. He felt responsible, so he stayed back. But what happened is, more and more as time passed, he was completely absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam. He invited devotees and sincere Brahmins, Vaishnavas, to come to his home just to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. And after some time, that's all he did. He gave a notice of sick leave to the king. But the king needed him so much, he sent a doctor. And when the doctor came back, he said, there's nothing wrong with Sanatan. He's just reading scriptures all day in the company of others. The Nawab Hussain Shah was furious. He went directly, entered into the room of Sanatan Goswami and chastised him. And Sanatan Goswami respectfully said, I will no longer serve the government under you. He was put in prison. An underground cell with chains. And on the chain was a big, heavy iron ball. He went from the prime minister who had influence and affluence beyond imagination to a lonely prisoner by his own sweet will. And somehow or other, by Sanatan Goswami's good intelligence and his attractive qualities to influence the hearts of others, he escaped from prison, in prison clothes. Eventually, without any companion, without any material means of any finances or possessions, in the robes of a prisoner, he arrived in Varanasi. And Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there at that time. At the house of Chandrasekhar, he met the Lord, and the Lord embraced him. It was there in Varanasi that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatan Goswami from sunrise till after the sun set for 2 months every day. It was during that time Sanatan Goswami was witness to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he transformed Prakashananda Saraswati, the leader of all the great Mayavadi philosophers, and his thousands and thousands of sannyasi disciples. It was there in Varanasi that he met with Tapan Mishra, Raghunath Bhatta, who was just a boy. For 2 months, Sanatan Goswami heard the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It is, according to our scriptures, the most comprehensive volumes of teachings that Lord Chaitanya directly gave to anyone. On the banks of the river Ganges, Ganga. And at the conclusion of these teachings to Sanatana Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed him to go to Vrindavan. He said that I want you to fulfill my purpose in Vrindavan. Everything I want to do, but because my mother, Sachi Devi, wants me to reside in Puri, I'm not able to do. I want to do it through you. And he gave him these simple instructions. I want you to teach through your example and your writings what is the proper behavior of a Vaishnava. I want you to teach the character of a Vaishnava. I want you to teach the purpose of the life of a Vaishnava. I desire that you discover and excavate the places of Krishna's pastimes, so that people from all over India and eventually all over the world will come on pilgrimage to Vrindavan to meditate on the Lord's Leelas. I want you to establish temples. Establish the temples and the worship of Krishna in his eternal transcendental form of the Archamurti. And I want you to compile books, extracting the very essence of all the holy scriptures. The ecstatic love of Sri Radha for Krishna. The ecstatic love of the residents of Vrindavan who are graced with that love of Sri Radha in their hearts. Krishna, whose supreme beauty, whose most playful pastimes, whose characters and qualities, whose sweet sound of his flute, and whose loving devotees are unparalleled anywhere in all spiritual worlds. Reveal Krishna and the means by which we can achieve Krishna in Vrindavan. Sanatana Goswami, he met Lord Chaitanya when Lord Chaitanya had already departed from Vrindavan. 2 months Lord Chaitanya spent roaming through the 12 forests, and now he was on his way back to Puri. And physically, he never returned to Vrindavan. But spiritually, he never left Vrindavan. So here, Sanatana Goswami was told to go west, and Lord Chaitanya was traveling east. Sanatana Goswami begged Lord Chaitanya, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan for me. But it was the Lord's will that he go. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita the pathetic experience of the separation that both Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami were feeling as they had to part from one another. Sanatana Goswami practically fainted when Lord Chaitanya left. It's so interesting. Our Srila Prabhupada, he left Vrindavan with the tears of ecstatic separation in his heart to go to preach. Sanatana Goswami was great feelings of separation from Lord Chaitanya, he was going to Vrindavan for the purpose of preaching. When he arrived, he met Subudhi Rai, who showed him the 12 forests of Vrindavan. And then on Lord Chaitanya's inspiration, Sanatana Goswami got to one time travel to Puri to meet him. And we're running out of time, actually. On the way to Puri, Sanatana Goswami, who was walking through lonely forests, he was all by himself. It's a very, very long walk from Vrindavan to Puri. He drank some water that was polluted and got a disease where his entire body was covered with unbearably itching, infectious rashes. There was pus, there was blood that would ooze from them. He was thinking, what is the use of my body? How can I serve in this situation? When he arrived in Puri, he resided with Srila Haridas Thakur. And every day Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and meet the two of them to discuss Hari Katha, to have Hari Kirtan. And Lord Jagannath himself would come out of his temple to bring his own Mahaprasad to Sanatan and Haridas. Considering themselves so fallen, they never attempted to enter into the temple of Jagannath. But Jagannath came out to be with them every day. And every day Lord Chaitanya would embrace Sanatana Goswami, and every day pus and blood would smear on his beautiful golden form. Sanatana, it was unbearable for him. But Lord Chaitanya expressed it was like nectar for him. How the Lord tested Sanatana Goswami for almost 1 year, he continued tolerating this disease. And then Lord Chaitanya embraced him once more with his long arms, and Sanatana Goswami's body was effulgent, completely filled with good health. When Haridas Thakur saw this with tears of ecstasy, he exclaimed, "This is all your pastimes, my Lord, to show the greatness of your devotee." And then the Lord sent Sanatan back to Vrindavan, where he spent the rest of his life. He traveled through the 12 forests. At one time, Sanatana Goswami was living in Gokul Mahavan, and he saw something extraordinary on the banks of the river Yamuna in Gokul. He saw a little boy playing with his friends. This little boy attracted Sanatana Goswami's heart like no other. He couldn't stop looking at this boy. Something was happening in his heart that caused it to overflood with ecstatic love. For the whole day, Sanatana Goswami just sat and watched this little boy playing with his friends. He appeared like a cowherd boy. And then when it was time to return home, Sanatana Goswami followed the little boy. The little boy went into a temple, the temple of Madan Gopal, When Sanatan went in, there was nobody there except the deity of Madan Gopal. He understood that that little boy was Krishna, giving me witness to his loving pastimes with his devotees. Later on, the deity of Madan Gopal was in the home of a Brahmin named Chowpatty. And he had a vision of the deity who wanted him to give the deity to Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami then had no home except the trees. And he was so completely transcendental that he would sleep under a different tree every night in the forest. Yet he considered this, with the gratitude of his heart, limitlessly greater wealth than the magnificent palaces he had in Ramakeli. What really gives value to something is our bhava, is our love, our appreciation, our gratitude. What Sanatan Goswami is teaching us. He felt to be the most fortunate person in all of creation to have this benediction he could never deserve, to sleep on the hard, cold ground of the forest, under a tree or a bush. At a certain time, he was living in a place, Dwadas Aditya Til. After Krishna danced on the hoods of Kaliya and was in the water of that lake of Yamuna for a long time, he went to the top of this hill and Surya, the sun, manifested 12 forms to warm Krishna's body. It was on that hill that Sanatan Goswami was living with Madan Gopal. They were sleeping under a tree together. Sanatan tried to construct a very little simple hut for Madan Gopal under a tree, and he himself would just live under trees. He would go out and beg Madhukari. He would get some wheat flour, very coarse ground wheat flour. He would mix some Yamuna water, make it into a ball, put it in a fire, and then offer that to Madan Gopal, rarely even having salt to flavor it. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna doesn't accept what we offer. He accepts the intent, the purpose in which we offer it. Krishna tells, if you even offer me a leaf with love and devotion, I will be fully satisfied. It was around that time Sanatan Goswami was praying that he could offer something better to Madan Gopal. That a ship that was traveling down the Yamuna River got stuck. And the captain of the ship, the proprietor who had all of his goods, he was a very wealthy man on that ship. He went up and took shelter of Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami gave him the shelter of Madan Gopal. And when the ship was released, he asked Sanatan Goswami, whatever wealth I have, I give it to you. Sanatan responded, what do I need? I'm happy. But Madan Gopal, he should have a nice temple. And the first temple, the Madan Mohan temple, was built under Sanatan Goswami's personal direction in the service of Sanatan Goswami in his love for Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan. Even today, 500 years later, it is the very symbol of Vrindavan. Sanatan Goswami is the Sambandha Guru who's teaching us how to establish a relationship with Krishna through loving devotion. And Madan Mohan is the form of the Lord, the Sambandha Murti, who attracts our hearts away from all the distractions of materialistic entanglements and attracts us to the path of loving service. There's a beautiful story that Kamadev wanted to test Krishna. He pointed his arrow, his best, most powerful of all arrows, that arrow that one arrow can completely mesmerize an entire universe with attraction for things. With all his power, he put in that arrow and he pointed it at Krishna to see what it would do. But before he could even release the arrow, just by looking at Krishna, Kamadev became so attracted to his beauty that he fell unconscious. Therefore, Madan Mohan, he who even conquered that person who conquers everybody, bewildered by Krishna's beauty. Sanatan Goswami, he traveled to the various forests of Vrindavan, so very, very dear to all the Brijabasis. In fact, he was considered to be the guru of all of Vrindavan. His love, he was so personal. Every day he would come to a different village, and everyone in the village would come to the outskirts to greet him. They would all be weeping and crying in joy. Oh, Sanatan, why have you been away from us for so long? We're simply crying for you to come. Please come. And they would offer everything they had to him, and he would accept just their love. He would ask simple questions to make them feel so valued and important. To Sanatan Goswami, the Brijabasis were so sacred. Everything they did was special. How is your crops? What did you grow this year? Did your children get married? Oh, I heard that you were married. How are your cows? Tell me, how is your health? In this way, everything about their lives he was interested in. Each person felt so important by the love of Sanatan Goswami. And when he was going to leave the village, everyone would follow him to the next village. They would be crying because they may not see him for a long time. When the other village that he was entering, everyone was on the outskirts celebrating, chanting the names of Sri Radharani and Sri Krishna with tears of love to greet Sanatan Goswami. In this way he lived. At one time, he went to Pavan Sarovar, which is just the foot of Nandishwar, the hill of Nandagram. On the top of that hill is where Krishna and Balaram lived, in the home of Nanda and Yashoda. It is their eternal home. At Pavan Sarovar, each day Nanda Maharaj would go there with his cows, and Krishna and Balaram would come with all of their cows. They would bathe in Pavan Sarovar. They would give water to their cows and calves at Pavan Sarovar. A very, very intimate part of Krishna's eternal pastimes. And on a particular bank of that lake, Yashoda Maya would cook for Krishna every day. She had heard that Durvas Muni gave a benediction to Sri Radharani, who was living in Bharasana, the daughter of Brishabhanu and Kirtida, the sister of Sri Rama. The benediction that anyone who tasted whatever food she prepared would never die and never be sick and be filled with happiness. Yashoda wanted only the best for Krishna. Rohini wanted only the best for Krishna and Balaram. So each day she would invite Srimati Radharani, who was accompanied by her Sakis, her gopis, Lalita, Vishaka, to assist her in cooking. This eternal pastime takes place at Pavan Sarovar. Sri Radharani, the expression of her Mahabhava, her supreme ecstatic love, is preparing food every day for Krishna and his friends and his associates and Nanda and Yashoda, everybody to enjoy. At that time, 5 centuries back, Pavan Sarovar was a very secluded place. Sanatana Goswami, when he was there, he was entering into these eternal pastimes. Although there was just nobody around in the worldly sense, he was surrounded by Sri Radha and the gopis and Sri Krishna Balaram and the gopis and Nanda and Yashoda, right at the foot of Krishna's home. He would sleep under trees. One day, a very sweet young cowherd boy came to Sanatana Goswami. He said that, why are you living in such a secluded place all alone and you have nothing? There's no one here. You're just sleeping under bushes and trees. I've come to bring you some milk. He gave him a bucket of milk from a cow that he just milked. Then the little child said that, I've been told by the Brijabasis, the local people, that they're very heartbroken to see such a great loved person as you living in such a primitive, austere way. Please, let us build you a hut in which you can do your worship. Sanatana Goswami explained how he was happy there was no need. The little boy left the milk and went on his way. When Sanatana Goswami drank that milk, he entered into such an ecstatic state of overpowering, overflowing, ever-increasing prema or love. He understood that that little boy was Krishna. Madan Gopal, my beloved Lord, appeared to me and I didn't even recognize him. And then he had another vision where Madan Gopal appeared to him and said, you are austere and you are happy chanting the holy names, but for the sake of all the Brijabasis who are crying tears seeing you in this situation, for their pleasure and for my pleasure, let us build you a hut. Sanatana Goswami, for the pleasure of Krishna, agreed. And that was the first bhajan kutir that Sanatana Goswami had in Vrindavan. And not far from there, after some time, at Keli Kadamba, Rupa Goswami had a bhajan kutir. And they would meet often in that Nandagram area. So much could be shared. After some time, Srila Sanatana Goswami, when he started getting older, he settled at Govardhan. Vajranabh, the great-grandson of Krishna, established Chakaleshwar Mahadev, one of the most sacred and important temples of Lord Shiva Mahadev. Sanatana Goswami and Lord Shiva had a very, very deep, intimate relationship. Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. He is Krishna in the mood of a devotee of Krishna. And there on the banks of Manasi Ganga, Sanatana Goswami lived. Every day he would do the parikrama of Giriraj Govardhan. He did very long parikrama, going to Chandra Sarovar and all of these very remote places. As he was aging, it was very difficult for him to do this Govardhan parikrama. One day, a little cowherd boy came to him with tears in his eyes. He said, Sanatana Goswamiji, you are so old. It must be so painful and difficult for you to do this whole Govardhan parikrama every single day. Please, you don't have to do it anymore. Please remain in your bhajan kutir at Chakaleshwar Mahadev. It's too much trouble. Sanatana Goswami, with such a grateful heart for the opportunity to do the Govardhan parikrama, he valued it so much. Whatever troubles there were not even a thought for him. Such a lesson for us to learn. He said, I have given my vow to Krishna that I will do this parikrama every day. So the little boy said, if Krishna tells you not to, will you follow? And Sanatana Goswami said, whatever pleases Krishna. Then the little boy climbed to the top of Govardhan Hill in the presence of Sri Sanatana Goswami and played his flute. While he played his flute, I'm going to conclude today with this story. Krishna was meditating on his love for Sanatana Goswami. his love for his devotee was so supremely all-pervading, intimate, that as he played his flute, remembering the qualities and the love of his devotee Sanatan, Govardhan Hill began to melt. And the stone that Krishna was standing on, his footprints melted into it. And also his little stick where he herded cows, and also a little footprint of a calf. Then, at this time, Sanatana Goswami understood that this little boy was Krishna. And he came down, service to his devotees, he came down holding this rock with his footprint and showed it to Sanatan and said, every day you circumambulate, you do parikrama of this one Shila, this stone, 4 times. And I will consider you have done the full Govardhan parikrama. Now Sanatana Goswami, with his age, he had no power to carry that Shila all the way back to Manasi Ganga. Krishna himself, this beautiful cowherd boy, personally followed Sanatana Goswami carrying the Shila and placed in his bhajan kutir. The love of Sanatana Goswami for Shri Govardhan. It was there at Govardhan Hill that Jayadev Goswami describes in his Gita Govinda, the Basant Ras Leela takes place forever. In the season of the spring, Krishna performs his rasa dance with Sri Radha and gopis. In all the beautiful places, the caves, the lakes, the srovars, the forests, the kunjas of Govardhan. It's at Govardhan Hill that Krishna Balaram will take their cows for grazing and perform so many infinite, intimate pastimes. It's at Govardhan that Krishna lifted that hill just to give pleasure to all of his devotees. For 7 days and 7 nights, Sri Girivaradhari was giving his darshan to all the Brijabasis. And to each devotee, to each peacock, to each parrot, to each cow, to everyone, they felt intimately Krishna's gazing upon me. He's playing his flute for me. Continuously 7 days, 7 nights, nobody slept, nobody even closed their eyes hardly. They were all enraptured in the ecstasy of loving darshan of Sri Krishna. And just through his glances, he was completely reciprocating with their love. The greatest pleasure for Krishna to taste the sweetness of his devotees' love, and the greatest ecstasy of the devotees to taste the sweetness of Krishna's love. This is forever taking place at Govardhan. It is a place that Srila Sanatana Goswami made his home in his old age. And it is there that he compiled such great literatures as the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, describing the supreme glories of Vrindavan. It was there at Chakaleshwar Mahadev Manasi Ganga Govardhan that Sanatana Goswami departed from this world. the Brijabasis, they all came. Their guru, their supreme well-wisher, their dearmost friend and guide had departed from the world. And every year, on that day of Guru Purnima, the disappearance day of Sanatan Goswami, they will do parikrama in his honor of Govardhan Hill. That same Govardhan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came there, he embraced the first rock that he found. And he kept a single little stone of Sri Giriraj that was given to him by a great saint. Always that Srila was covered with the tears of his love. And after years of intimate relation with that Govardhan Srila, Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya presented that to Raghunath Das Goswami, who made his residence at Govardhan Hill near Radha Kund. Sanatan Goswami, through his life, through his teachings, opened the doors to the understanding of the true path of bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas taught, by following in the footsteps of such Goswamis, we can actually understand not only how to approach Vrindavan, but how to live in Vrindavan, in all situations, in all places, forever. I thank you very much. Shall we have kirtan at this time?
Yes, Maharaj. You can have it.
It will be nice if there's somebody who can introduce each situation so that we know what to do.
Maharaj, as you will lead Kirtan, in the chorus, ISKCON Pune will be.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desathadine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hey, very small circles, very good.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Gopinath, Radha Gopinath, Radhe.
Radha Gopinath, Radha Gopinath, Radhe.
Jaya Radha Vrindavan Chandra, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, Radhe.
Radha Vrindavan Chandra, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, Radhe.
Jai Radha, Radha Kanta, Radha Kanta, Radhe.
Radha Kanta, Radha Kanta, Radhe.
Jaya Radha Vrindavan Bihari, Radha Vrindavan Bihari, Radhe.
Vrindavan Bihari, Radha Vrindavan Bihari, Radhe.
Jai Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radhe.
Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radhe.
Jai Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe.
Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe.
Jai Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe.
Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe.
Jai Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Sham Sundar, Radhe.
Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar, Radhe.
Jai Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe.
Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe.
Jai Radha Ramana Radha Ramana Radhe.
Ramana Radha Ramana Radhe.
Jai Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe.
Radha Giridhare Radha Giridhare Radhe.
Jai Radha Rasa Bihari Radha Ras Bihari Radhe.
Radha Rasbihare Radha Rasbihare Radhe.
Jai Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe.
Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo.
Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Gaur Premanande.
Gaura Premanandi. Jai Jai Sri Radhe. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I thank you very much.